Hey everyone, I know in my last video I said I was going to take a break from the news and talk about the arts a bit more because, you know, the arts are more permanent. Great art endures. News, it's very, very ephemeral. It feels like everything, centers around this one story. And then a couple months later, it's like, what was that all about? Who even remembers that? That's the way things go with regard to news stories. However, I do want to dip back into the news again because while I was taking a stroll just now, something came into my mind that I thought I would, that maybe is an interesting and original thought, and maybe there's some truth to it. So I thought I would just throw it out there for y'all to chew over and consider. Well, here's what occurred to me concerning the disaster, the catastrophe, the environmental and humanitarian catastrophe of East Palestine, Ohio. What occurred to me, what I thought just now, was that maybe this is a theory, a conspiracy theory, if you like, but maybe this was never supposed to become a story in the first place. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that maybe this was not supposed to be covered anywhere. This was not supposed to really be discussed or talked about, except maybe on a local level. I don't see how they could not talk about it locally, but I think probably this was not supposed to be a national or international story seizing headlines. I think maybe the people who run things just sort of thought, well, we could do this. And again, this is just my theorizing here, because I don't know if this was done intentionally, but on the other hand, watch my previous video in which I talk about three strange quote coincidences regarding this chemical spill, this train derailment and consequent chemical spill, and the things that make you really wonder if this might have been something intentional. No smoking gun. I mean, I'm not claiming that, but anyway, if you want to know what I mean, what the context is for what some of you might think is such a crazy out there, especially if you're new to this channel, such a crazy out there notion, then I invite you to go back and watch that video of mine where I discuss three strange coincidences related to East Palestine, Ohio. One was the white noise being filmed there just before this happened, and then there was the EPA report that got changed. Sorry, the CDC report that got changed just a month before regarding these toxic chemicals, and how it became much more inconspicuous, and the information much of the information was taken down and put up in a very abridged form, almost as if they were trying to not call attention to these particular chemicals, which just happened to be the toxic chemicals that spilled in East Palestine, Ohio on February 3rd, when that fateful train derailment happened. And the third, of course, being the strange digital ID program that they were deciding to put into effect in, of all places, East Palestine, Ohio, just a couple of weeks, maybe 1 week. It was late January where that was a story. They were going to put this digital health program into effect where you wear something around with you, and it tells people what you're suffering with, and they can scan it, and it's just another one of those, not frightening at all, digital ID kind of endeavors that the powers that shouldn't be just keep wanting to foist upon us. So all of that is to say there is at least circumstantial reason to wonder if this was an accident at all, or if this was something that was supposed to happen. And if it was supposed to happen, I'm thinking maybe it was supposed to be something that just went under the radar. Maybe they thought in their arrogance, look, we can just make this happen. We'll pull this off. We'll execute this operation. Operation Poison the Heartland. Maybe they called it. I don't know. And they just thought, it's out in the sticks. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody cares about these people. These are just a bunch of white trash opioid addicts, who voted for Trump, and who we in the elite all hate, loathe, and despise. So nobody's going to care about them anyway. So we'll just let this happen, and it'll just fly under the radar. Maybe they had an idea that was going to be the result. That nobody would really talk it up. No large outlet would pick up on it. Of course, they thought that maybe the people they think of as conspiracy theorists and crazies, and everybody like that would maybe notice it and say a thing or two about it. But these people are often so successful at making terrible things happen and then just throwing a lid over it, right? And covering it all up, or just saying nothing to see here, go away, we're not talking about this, on to the next thing. And maybe that's what they counted on happening with their complicit media in tow. But things didn't fall out as they had planned, because after it happened, it got so much attention in 2 weeks following the date of the catastrophe itself, the derailing of the train, and then the so-called controlled burn of the chemicals, which resulted in these harmful, toxic chemicals, just being scattered into the atmosphere, and into the water and into the soil, and in all likelihood into people's into people's lungs, and so forth. So the notion was, this will just happen, and it'll be a sort of small town event. Nobody cares, and we'll just move on from there. We'll see to it that the agenda is advanced, that the big news places, talk about other stuff, like how we need to give billions and billions and trillions of dollars to Ukraine, to keep a war going there, and how that's the really important thing. But something happened to trip them up, or something happened that was unexpected, because people like them, they constantly underestimate. They overestimate their own intelligence, and they underestimate the notion that the people that they think are just only fit to be, sheep to be, or cattle to be ruled over, to be culled when necessary. And this is the way that they see the general public, but especially the type of people in the Rust Belt, where East Palestine is. They have a special loathing for that demographic, and maybe that they let their hatred get away with them just a little bit, and they thought nobody will care, and then lo and behold, this story really got talked up by a lot of people, and even an unbought activist like Erin Brockovich, who they made a movie about a few years ago, and was at one time a liberal icon, but now she's saying she's calling the Biden administration to task, and so it's sort of like, ooh, that wasn't supposed to happen. And I don't know, people on social media, people on Twitter, people in the alternative media kept drawing attention to it and kept talking about it, that eventually the mainstream news media had to start talking about it as well. They had to start covering it. But it was really the reason why I come to this, or the reason why I theorize what I'm theorizing here, is that I find it really odd that this basically got no coverage when it happened, and it got no coverage for days and days, and maybe for even like a week or a week and a half, or maybe even 2 weeks. It took a long time for mainstream media sites to say, "Oh, this is an important story. This is really a profound catastrophe. This is something that we need to cover." And so maybe to the dismay of the the establishment, the types who were pushing this op, maybe to their dismay, they're usually complicit partners in the mainstream media, just were put into a corner and basically said, "Look, we have to talk about this. If we don't talk about this, it's going to be really strange." So now you read about it in the New York Times, and you see stories about it on CNN, Washington Post, and all the usual grisly suspects, the same grisly ilk that we all know and loathe. But they're covering the story now. And another reason why I have this theory is the fact that you have Buttigieg. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I don't care. But just being so tin-eared, being so callous, not mentioning this catastrophic event at all. And he's the transportation secretary. He ought to be the first one to hone in on it. He should have been there from day one, right after it happened. If the government is really advocates for the people, which of course they aren't. If you believe that, you're a fool. But if they were, in that kind of scenario, he would be right on top of it from day one. He would be, sending people out there and making strong statements and doing whatever it took. But he said nothing about it after it happened for days and days. And then he even made some sort of some extremely callous remark about, the train derailment in Ohio is getting a lot of attention, but really there's train derailments that happen all the time. I mean, he actually said that. I mean, can you believe how tin-eared a person can be? But again, maybe the scenario, the idea was, maybe he wasn't even maybe he wasn't even part of the inner loop. Maybe it's possible that even though he's the transportation secretary, he didn't even know that this major manner of transportation had this extremely significant catastrophe and environmental and humanitarian disaster take place. It's possible he just didn't know, that he was just too busy going around giving speeches about how there's too many white men in the railroad industry, and that's the really important thing to talk about, not this toxic chemical spill that threatens people in over who knows how wide a swath it's ultimately going to affect humanity, and it's already affected the animal kingdom, as we keep hearing over and over again. Dogs are dying, cats are dying, fish are dying, birds are dying, what have you. So, I mean, is it at all possible that even that maybe Buttigieg and even Biden weren't even on the loop? They didn't even know that it happened when it happened, and they just said to Biden, "Okay, all right, old man, take your uppers and get on this plane and go to Ukraine and say what you're supposed to say, because we need to keep this op going in Ukraine." And meanwhile, everybody was talking. It became this huge story, in spite of the best laid plans of mice and men to keep it under wraps. And I think that what I'm saying is plausible. And if it is plausible, then this should be a quote unquote white pill to a lot of people who just think, well, the bad people are in charge and they control everything, and nothing's ever going to change, and blah blah blah. That whole defeatist crap. If what I'm saying is true, then we had people covering this story that needed to be covered on a grassroots level, and people talking about it, and and starting this buzz, and the buzz not being able to die down. They couldn't kill it. They couldn't do or they couldn't detoggle it or de-amplify it, like they often do with stories that they don't want out there, and now it's this huge blemish on not only the administration but the powers that be in general. So that shows that under certain circumstances anyway, if you are determined to make this thing heard, and enough other people say, yeah, this is something pretty huge, this is something pretty terrible, we need to talk about it. Why is the mainstream media not talking about this? We need to keep pushing this. And eventually it got out there, and eventually it became the big story that it needed to be the whole time. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think of my thoughts below if you care to, and thank you for watching.